at that first image on your notes outline, let me get the calendar off here. Screen. Here we go. Here we go. So looking at this image on the left where it says angle addition, I think this one is pretty straightforward. I need y'all's conversations to stop, please. Okay, so the one on the left is pretty straightforward. Okay, if you have an angle with extra rays or segments or lines or any sort of other figure intersecting it, creating additional angles, okay, we can combine the smaller pieces. They should be the sum of the whole, okay? Two parts make a whole, right? In this image. So it has the smaller angle on left labeled as 40 degrees, the larger angle on right, 83. So we would simply do angle addition and say these two smaller angles must add to the entire angle. I'm actually going to write underneath this the names of those angles just for the sake of practice. So the blue one, what would you name that 40-degree angle? Not the type. It is acute, but that's a category or a type. We actually name it with the letters. Remember? I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Owen.
QRT. No.
QRT would be one name. So I could say angle QRT. Okay. Plus. Okay, and then they did the other one in red. So what could we name the red angle? We could do SRT or TRS. R has to be in the middle because it's the vertex. Nope, because an angle has to be named with 3 letters in this image. I can't name either of them angle R because there's multiple angle R's in this picture. So in this case, you have to use 3 letters. And the R is the vertex, so it has to be centered. So the two smaller angles must add to equal the whole angle, which is QRS. And notice QR and then RS were the outsides of the two smaller angles, right? Those were the rays of the smaller angles, or the sides, the rays that make up the big angle were also each array of the smaller angles that made up that larger one. Okay. Now, angle bisector is a little more complex. You have to know what that term bisect means, okay? So you've probably heard dissect in science. Have most of y'all taken bio? Okay. So I don't know if y'all actually got to do any dissections, but dissect, you're cutting something, right? Cutting it open. Okay, so bisect is similar. In bisect, we're cutting, but what does that prefix bi mean? 2. Just like bicycle, okay, 2 wheels. A bisector cuts something, but in exactly 2 equal parts, okay? Not just 2 random parts. So over here, RT, this ray, is not a bisector because these 2 sides are not equal. But here, this red ray, I know yours is in black and white, but on my screen, it's a red ray. AS is an angle bisector because it's cutting the angle CAT into 2 equal parts. Okay, so if it says that up there in writing, if you want to highlight, underline, whatever you like to do for your notes, okay, it is into 2 congruent angles. Okay, a ray that divides an angle into 2 congruent angles bisects the angle. Okay, if you want to add above or below, just bisect, just that singular term, that verb. It just means, simplest terms, to cut in half. Okay. Now, there are some things on this image before we jump to the examples. I want to add a little extra to. You can do it in the margins or above or below wherever you have room. Okay, but there are these markings on here on these angles. They're called congruence markings. Congruent means equal measure, right? We said that the other day, equal measure. So congruence markings are ways we mark figures or images congruent. Now, for angles, it could be tick marks or it could just be arcs drawn in the angles. In this particular example, they used tick marks in there on those individual angles, but I'm going to show a couple of additional examples because you may see it drawn other ways. Okay, so it can be if images have, I don't know why that got thick all of a sudden. Hang on. Seriously? Okay, whatever. So if you have the same number of tick marks on parts of an image or figure, then those two parts are congruent. Okay, for angles, it could just be the same number of arcs. They are congruent. That's what that means. They are equal size, equal measure. So I'm going to put a couple of additional examples of what that could look like. And again, you can do this in your margin or wherever you have room. So in the image above, I'm just going to do a little mock-up of that. They chose to use tick marks. So they did an arc with one tick mark and an arc with one tick mark. Okay, so it can be done that way. It does not have to be one tick mark. Okay, it could have multiple tick marks. It could look like this. You could have an arc with 2 or 3 tick marks. As long as the other one has the same number of tick marks, that is marking it congruent. So it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. Some of these images we eventually get to are going to have lots of different angles and there may be other relationships. So you may get to have 2 or 3 or 4 tick marks on an arc. Okay, so you need to know it's not just the one tick mark. As long as they have the same number of tick marks, they're congruent. Okay, and then you could do it with arcs. So instead of tick marks, I could just draw 2 arcs on this one and then 2 arcs on this one. And that means they're congruent because they have the same number of arcs. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can mark angles congruent. Now with segments, rays and lines cannot be congruent, right? Why can't a ray or lines be congruent? Yeah, they have no measure. We can't measure them. Remember, they go on, they have arrows, they go on forever in one direction for a ray or 2 directions for a line. So we can't mark lines or rays congruent, but segments have endpoints on both sides. So segments can be congruent. If you're marking segments congruent, you'll just put tick marks. The arcs are only for angles. You would just put tick marks directly on the segments that are congruent. Does that make sense? Okay. So in this image up here, they have ray AS is bisecting angle CAT. So ray AS is the angle bisector. That's the term for that ray or segment or line. In this case, it's a ray, but it can be other figures that actually cuts the angle in half. It's called the angle bisector. If you want to add that to the side, you can. I'm going to say ray AS is the angle bisector. Okay. So what does that mean for these smaller angles? Okay, they're marked congruent, but remember we learned how to write a congruent statement. That means that angle CAS measure, well, I'm not going to put the measure because they have the measure listed as 31. So I'm just going to put angle CAS is congruent to angle SAT. Everybody good with that? Any questions about how to mark angles congruent or markings you would look for or what these terms mean? We feel okay? All right, let's jump to the examples then. Okay, and example 1, this is about as basic as it can get. I'm going to try and color code here for you. It says find the measure of angle BLA. Okay, so L doesn't have a point there. I'm going to draw a point. Okay, so B to L to A. So that's this whole kit and caboodle, right? We want to know that entire measure. What do I do? Yeah, the two smaller angles that make it up are labeled. Okay, they're labeled in the picture and they're listed out here. The measure of BLM is 105. The measure of MLA is 63. I simply add. That's all I have to do. Okay, because I've got this smaller angle in here is 105. And I've got this smaller angle in here is 63. So I know you can add this in your head, but for the sake of our notes, I tend to write things out so you can reference and make sure you know where it came from. Because those two smaller angles together total the larger angle that make it up. So I would write the measure of angle BLA equals 168 degrees. Like I said, that's as simple as they're going to get. Now, you do have to be able to go backward. What if instead of asking for the total and giving us the two smaller pieces, they gave us one smaller piece and the total? Yeah, just go backwards, subtract. That's it. Okay. All right. I'm actually going to go over to number 3 so I don't have to scroll up and down multiple times. So I'm going to go across here to the right to number 3. Okay, so this one does give us the whole kit and caboodle is 150. But instead of telling us the angle measure, they give us an expression. So we're throwing the variables in here now. We got to refresh on algebra skills. Okay, and this time they give us markings. These were not congruent over here. LM was not an angle bisector. But here, because of these tick marks, I know that that middle segment is bisecting the angle. So if these two angles are congruent, okay, that means if I add them together, they're going to equal 150, right? But this one's not labeled. I know what it is, though, because of the markings. What is this angle also? Yeah, it's congruent. So it's also 4x minus 5. Now, there are multiple ways to set this up. Okay, some of you may prefer to write it this way. You have 4x minus 5, and then you have another 4x minus 5, and it should total 150. That's fine. You can do it that way. I am going to do it slightly differently. Okay, another way, I'm going to put or here. Does anybody know another way I could set it up to start? Go ahead. Okay, so I'm going to take it back one step from where you were, but yes, you can take that 4x minus 5, and instead of adding it to itself, that's the same as multiplying by 2, right? Okay, so if you wanted to start it out like this, you could start it out like that. And then from there, you could even go 2 routes. Okay, so what Marin said is she had 8x minus 10. How did she get 8x minus 10? This 2 out here, she distributed it. Okay, so if you have it set up this way, you can distribute the 2. So the 2 has to go be multiplied in to everything in the parentheses. So then she would have the 8x minus 10. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. But my point is there's more than one way to go about this and get the same correct answer. Because instead of distributing that 2, did anybody else think of a different way that I could solve that? Ian, is that right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you could divide the 2 to the other side and have 75. Okay. So I just want, I'm not saying this is complicated, but I want to point out that there are multiple ways about going about doing that. Okay. So whichever way you prefer, in the end, we should get the same value of x. Okay. So I'm going to erase some of this because I'm going to run out of room. Actually, no, I won't erase it. I'll just move off to the side here. If it'll let me extend my page that way. I don't know if it will. Okay, guys, I still need the conversations to stop. So the other option, I think I heard somebody say it. They said, if I know that these are equal, these are bisected, and I know the total's 150, you could have started out by simply dividing 150 by 2 and labeling this as 75 and 75. And so maybe you started out by simply setting 4x minus 5 equal to 75. That is also correct. Okay, it doesn't matter which one of these I solve, I should get the same answer. So I'm just going to solve this one up here. So remember when you're solving, oh my gosh, why do I have the eraser all of a sudden? Okay, so remember when I'm solving this, I move the constant first. It's been a little while maybe since you've done some algebra. Move the constant by opposite operation, and then move the coefficient by opposite operation, which in this case is divide. So we end up with x equals 20. If you solved any of these other methods, you should also get x equals 20. Is everybody good with that one? Yes. Okay. All right. Let's move on to 2 then. Okay, in number 2, we're told the measure of angle KIJ. So I'm going to do some tracing here. KIJ. Okay, so this one is 2x plus 6. So I'm going to label it in my picture. I highly recommend you always label stuff. So 2x plus 6. And it says HIJ. Okay, that's this one is 9x minus 4. They say that the measure of angle KIJ, so that's the whole thing, all of it together, is 68 degrees. Now, do you see any congruence markings? No. So we are not going to like split the 68 in half and say, oh, this must equal 34. Or we're not going to set these equal to each other because they're not marked congruent. Is everybody good with that? So this one does not have a bunch of different ways to set it up because it's not an angle bisector. Okay, there's one way we're going to set this up. What is it? We're just going to have to add the 2 small angles and they should equal the big angle, the 68. So I'm just going to set that up. I'm going to write it out. I'll keep it color coded. So we're just going to have to add our 2 known angles and it should equal the 68. Now, some of you may write all of that out in your first line. Some of you, since you've labeled it in your picture, or maybe just when you're reading up here, if you realize you're adding these together, you may go ahead and combine like terms in your head before you write your first line, and that's okay too. But you would end up with 11x, that's our x's combined, and then plus 2, that's our constants combined. Now we're ready to move terms. Okay, so we're going to solve, move the constant by subtraction here. Move the coefficient by division. Are we done? Did we answer the question? Nope. What did they ask us to find? Yeah, we have to come back up here and make sure we're answering the question that is asked. We found X, fantastic. That was the first step. Now what do we have to do with X? Plug it back in. And they're asking us to find Hij, which is the blue one. Okay, so we're looking for the blue angle. So that's 9x minus 4. We're going to take our value, which was, I already forgot, 6, and plug it back in. What's 9 times 6? Oh, got it. Okay, so when I calculate that, it's 50 degrees. So now I'm going to write that out, what they asked. I'm going to write the measure. Why do I have the eraser? I have a pen. Mom. The measure of angle, and actually I don't have to, I'll write it next to this 50. Save myself some room. The measure of angle Hij is 50 degrees. That's my answer. Okay, if you need to label, this is what we did first. This is what we did second. Okay, so you know what order we did our work in. You can do that. Okay, so first we solved for X, then we plugged it in and found the angle we were asked for. All right, what does 4 have that this last one did not? This one here.
That one doesn't have the total.
Okay, doesn't have the total. Yeah, I asked what it does have, but yours, that's fine. So what's different is it doesn't have the total number. Aubrey? The arcs. What do those arcs tell us? Those are congruent. Guys, I really need y'all to stop having side conversations when we're going through a lesson. It's very distracting and you're not paying attention. We're almost done. All right. So the Aubrey said this one has these arcs on the angles that this last one didn't. That tells us that these are congruent. Okay. So this one does, and Maren said it doesn't have the total. So we don't know what PRS is as a whole. So we can't add these together and set it equal to the whole. What are we going to have to do? Anybody think they know? We're going to have to set them equal to each other. Liam, right? Liam said, because these are marked with the arcs, that means they're congruent. Congruent means equal. So we algebraically set them equal. So we're going to set x plus 40 equal to 3x minus 20. Now this is the first one we've had where the variables are on both sides. So we've got to move all of our x's to one side, constants to the other. Okay, so I'm going to move my x's to the right to keep my coefficient positive. If you moved your x's to the left, it's okay. You'll end up with the same answer at the end. So then the constants to the left with opposite operation. Divide out the coefficient. Did it? This one actually did not specify. That was my bad, I guess, in making the notes. I don't want us just to find x though. X is 30. That's fantastic. We need that, but we want to know the size of the angles. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that 30 and then plug it back in up here. Does it matter which one of these I plug it into?
No.
Now, it's a good idea to plug it into both because that's a way of self-checking, right? If you get the same answer for both, then you did it correctly because they're supposed to be equal. So you can do this one in your head. If I plug in a 30, 30 plus 40 is, so this angle should be 70. Okay, does this come out the same? 30 times 3 is 90 minus 20, also 70. So what if they had asked for the whole angle? What's the whole angle? Very good. So depending on what you're asked for, make sure you go back and plug in whatever is necessary. Okay, answer what is being asked. Okay, so you are now going to get your laptops out to practice this. I'll come around and help as needed. You can use these notes. You can talk to each other. Okay, if your note and your neighbors can't help and you're still stuck, please ask your question. Okay, so if you go to our canvas, I know you can't all hear me because you're all talking.
I can hear. Because I'm not.
Well, you're also right by me.
Well, yeah. And I also do.
All right, multiple ways to get to the assignment. I know I linked it here on the actual calendar, so you could simply come to today's date and click on the assignment and it will take you there. Remember, you can go through the notes button or the My Learning button. Those take you to our Unit 1 module and you could click on the assignment there. You could go in your navigation to assignment and you can click on the assignment there. It also, I believe you have a to-do list that shows up on the right of your canvas when you log in, and you should see it in your to-do list. Okay, so there's 4 different ways to get to the assignment. It has the date, 8/19. This is section 1, unit 1, section 3. Okay, we're practicing angle pairs. Okay, this delta math is a little different than the last 2 because the last 2, all of the questions were generated from the delta math question bank. Meaning, when I set it up, I can set it to where it generates a new problem. If you get one wrong, you know, you can keep trying until you get the assigned number correct. That's how it typically works. But these questions, the majority of these questions were typed in by one of our geometry teachers. She created the assignment for our team that we're using. Okay, so that means if you get it wrong, it's wrong. There's no generating a new problem to try again. Now, I did set it to 3 attempts at a problem instead of 2. Normally you get, it'll be like, ooh, that's not right, try again. And you can try another time. And if you get it wrong, it's wrong, but then you can try a new problem. Since we can't try a new problem, I set it to 3 attempts. So if you get it wrong after the 3rd attempt, it stays wrong. There's no coming back or getting the points back. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so the grading is slightly different than the last 2. So just keep that in mind. Okay, you're not going to have an unlimited number of problems to try. Okay, you get 3 attempts at a problem. If it's still wrong, it's wrong. No coming back. Good? Okay, y'all have the rest of class to work on this. Again, if you have not finished the previous assignment, the one from yesterday, it's due today. So I would recommend finishing that one first. Okay, and then once you finish it, you should definitely be able to finish that one. You shouldn't have had much left from yesterday's. Okay, but once you finish yesterday's, then start today's.
Yes.